Okay, Fandom, we're back. This is Jeff Hasley joining you. And just want to say thanks for taking the time to join us. We appreciate you watching the show. I'm excited to have offensive line and draft analyst Matt Bitonti of footballguys.com join us this week. He is at Draft Daddy on Twitter, so give him a follow. I'm sure you'll appreciate his insight and his unique approach to what we're going to talk about, and that's all about the offensive line, the Carolina Panthers offensive line. So I've known Matt for several years, and he's the most knowledgeable guy that I know who can intelligently talk about offensive lines. And Matt, thanks for coming on the show and talking about the Panthers and the offensive line. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on. I love talking the offensive line any night of the week, any team. So
all right,
Carolina, let's get right into it.
Excellent. Well, I've got on my my Julius Peppers jersey here. It qualifies as a lineman. However, I don't have the Jordan Gross jersey or anything close to it, so this is going to be as close as I can get here this week. But anyhow, let's talk about the offensive line, and let's talk a little bit about you and your background. Now, the topic of offensive line isn't very sexy, but it's one of the most important aspects of a good football team. How did you become such an expert in offensive lines?
So it took years. It started when I was in high school when I played football, and then I played football in college, Division III. I was a guard up in Maine, Bowdoin College. I rode the bench, but I learned a lot about the game. And then after school, I had draftdaddy.com, which was a draft website. And I went to Mobile every year, Alabama, and that's where I met Sigmund Bloom and Cecil Lammy and all the football guys. And I used to love hanging out in the pit. And, there's no substitute for seeing these guys live, So for every year, 10 years, I went to Mobile. In 2013, football guys hired me as an offensive line analyst. And, ever since then, I'd say my knowledge has been deepened because I've just been watching film. It doesn't stop. You watch every game, every week, as much snaps as you can.
Yeah, and we watch a lot of film. Those who watch film, it's mostly positional players, and it's quarterbacks, it's receivers, running backs, maybe defensive backs and such, linebackers. Offensive line just doesn't get a whole lot of publicity. So, what exactly do you look for when you're looking at offensive line film? How can you? Maybe you can. I can ask this a different way. What makes an offensive line good? What makes a unit strong and effective, and also weak for that matter?
So, what I like to do is every Tuesday when the NFL Game Pass comes out, I will watch all the games I didn't see on Sunday and just let it wash over me. And I'll take notes, whether if a guy gets beat or whatever, but nothing specific and not every single play. I'm not grading a guy based on his performance every single play. But in terms of what an offensive line can do for an offense is if it's 3rd and 1, on the 1 yard line, and everyone knows you're going to run it. Can you exert your will on the other team? The best lines in the league can do that. Almost every line in the league can give their quarterback 2.5 seconds most of the time. These guys are mostly pass blocking in college. The spread offense has gotten in popularity. They're in 2-point stances. The truly top 5 lines, the what I call the elite top tiers, these guys can run on rundowns and exert their will, and that's the difference between the good lines and just the average lines.
If you have, let's say, we're familiar with the terms left tackle and right tackle, and it usually we understand that the left tackle is kind of like the blind spot protector for the quarterback. Is that the most important position on the offensive line? What would you say is the most important?
We have had this discussion so many different ways, but I grade both tackles equally in the model just for simplicity's sake. Although I will say that if you were looking for a free agent, it would be harder to find a left tackle with the left tackle skill set than to find a right tackle who can run block. Some guys can't do both. Some guys can. Lane Johnson, the top 10 pick, runs a 4.8, can't play left tackle. He just can't do it. It's like going left-handed versus going right-handed. Some guys can switch it in baseball. Some guys can't do it. So I think it's rarer to find a left tackle than it is to find a right tackle. And that's a supply and demand situation. But in the model, I count the tackles double than the guards, and I count the center as a guard and a half for simplicity's sake.
Gotcha. And you're talking about your offensive line rankings that you do for football guys, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, so left tackle is all about speed, footwork, hand placement. I mean, what makes a left tackle someone who's different than a right tackle?
Left tackle is going to need length, more length than a right tackle, arm length. You're going to need quick feet. You're going to need you're going to be left on an island a little bit more, just because football is a traditional game in a lot of ways, and most of the quarterbacks are right-handed, and the tight end goes on the right side, and it ends up being a power side. And just by having the tight end there gives the right tackle a split second more. And we can have this discussion till the end of time with TJ Watt and VJ Von Miller and blah, 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 and whatever. I'm just saying that if you're going to go out on the free market, it's harder to find guys that are like a left tackle, a prototypical left tackle, than a prototypical right tackle. The right tackles are more maulers, bulldozers, guys you can run behind. It's rare to find a left tackle you can run behind, like John Ogden or Orlando Pace. Those guys are kind of throwbacks. But it ends up being like a speed and finesse difference. Some teams like Louisville used to have, and we're going to talk a lot about Louisville. Louisville used to have the speed and the power side where they would flip their tackles, depending on the play. And it ends up being that sort of situation where teams end up with a power side and a finesse side, and asking the finesse left tackle to be on an island is harder.
Yeah, and I guess it also goes to show, the versatility that some of these linemen have. They can play center, they can play guard, they can even play tackle. That goes a long way. All right, well, let's talk about the Panthers here, since we've got fans who want to know, what can we expect from the three newcomers that are coming on for Carolina? You've got left tackle Russell Okung, left guard John Miller from Louisville, who I'm sure you're familiar with, and right guard Michael Schofield, who they just recently signed. So those are the three new guys. Share with Panthers fans what Carolina is getting with these players.
So yeah, when you asked me to come on to the show, I did a little extra research, and I had grades on these guys and everything, but the connections are actually interesting. Russell Okung worked with offensive line coach Pat Meyer and Michael Schofield back when he was in Los Angeles, San Diego, 2015 or whatever that was.
Right.
But that's a connection. John Miller is only 26. He was at Louisville when Teddy Bridgewater was there. You've got like Matt Paradis and Okung in the Super Bowl with Denver. I'm not Okung. No. Schofield was there.
Okay.
Schofield started in that Super Bowl against Carolina. So there's all this, like, in our model, we have cohesion, which is another whole idea of them playing together. And when you bring in three new starters, it hurts cohesion. Carolina's 19th in my rankings, but if they had all five starters from last year with all their grades, they'd be a lot higher. But what Matt Rule is doing is he's taking a shortcut to cohesion by finding guys that have played together before, systems that are very similar. So you talked about, we'll get to the individual stuff, but the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles is going to run a similar system to what the new offensive coordinator from LSU is going to run in Carolina. He wants tempo. He wants wide receivers in bunches. He's going to run he might have 5 wide receivers and motion the running back into the backfield before the run happens. He's going to have these guys running tempo, spread concepts, and they're almost the same sort of system, which is why Schofield can go from Los Angeles, and how you can trade Trey Turner and Okung, which is a big trade and it's a very controversial trade. I'll say this: Turner is probably the better player, but Okung has more positional scarcity, so it's a fair wash. And Russell Okung is a very interesting person. He's like the NFL PA rep. He has lawsuits against the league. Sometimes he's his own agent, which is rare.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he passed out before he signed with I think Denver or whatever. He left, and for a year he was his own agent. That would put a bet on himself. So it's not surprising to see him move around because he's not everybody's cup of tea. But Matt Rule seems like the type of guy that's going to treat everybody like a person, like a man, and that appeals to Okung, who has his choice of where he wants to go.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? Talk to us and explain what you think of the trade of Trey Turner to the Chargers for Okung. What are we getting with Okung? He's a veteran. My guess, again, offensive line is not my strong suit. That's why I'm pointing to you. But I'm thinking that he was a much better player when he was with Seattle, and it just kind of dropped off. Is that true? Are we getting kind of a lesser version of the former great Pro Bowler Okung?
I think he has a chance to bounce back. It's very hard to predict these things. Last year's injuries were weird. He had pulmonary embolism before the season, which stopped him in his tracks. Didn't get back on the field until week 8 or 9 after on the injured list. So it's almost like he didn't have a preseason, wasn't quite in football shape. And then when he got there, the people weren't giving him consistent playing time because they weren't really interested in building their future around him. So that's a situation that's tough for any player. I can tell you that the Chargers offense looks way better with him in the lineup than not, Trey Pipkins or whatever, who's going to be their starter this year. And that's a whole nother situation. The Turner trade is about money, as everything is. Turner has more Pro Bowl accolades. He has a younger pedigree, which is theoretically makes him a little bit more durable in the long term, but you don't know these things. So basically Turner's going to need another deal. Okung, maybe we can talk about Greg Little replacing Okung, at some point in the year or next year. So that's the difference, is that you're going to have to pay Trey Turner, and he's a little younger, but they're both excellent players. And like I said, having a better left tackle is probably more important than having a better right guard or whatever.
Right. And you mentioned Okung. What about John Miller? What are we getting with John Miller?
So yeah, he's a power slobber knocker player, just like Schofield. Actually, they don't have that ideal length, but they both have anchor. They go better forward than backwards. All these guys they don't use the language anymore because it becomes controversial among fans, but all these guys want to establish the run. They want their coaches to call plays that help them go forward and get these guys off. They're going to run zone, and then, they're off, covering the wide receivers. And now you have some room to operate up front, and then that opens up the rest of the game for them. Play action, as opposed to we're behind, we're always on our back foot. It's 3rd and 11. They're coming at us like crazy. That's like an offensive lineman's worst nightmare. And Okung told the press, in Los Angeles, we like him to go forward. And John Miller is one of those guys with Cincinnati and I think Buffalo briefly. It didn't quite work out for one of those two teams. He switched around, but he's still pretty young. He's 26 going into his prime. And then I would say he's going to face competition from Dennis Daly. Those guards mix in the offseason. Before it, I would have said that's Dennis Daly's job, because he really comported himself well when he got into the game last year as a rookie. I even played a little left tackle, if memory serves, or right tackle. And when you can do that, you usually have no problem at guard. It wouldn't surprise me if Daly starts. I mean, that's a problem when I'm talking about teams in May. And I write these Sigmund Bloom team reports about how Miller is a veteran and blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the season and the rookies are starting, or the second-year guys. I know that the coaches like Little. I know they like, Dennis Daly, and why not? So I would say Dennis Daly has a chance to start over Miller, or, possibly over Schofield, or if one of them gets hurt. So he's really right on deck with those guys.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's good to have depth, and it looks like the Panthers have some key depth players. Speaking of depth, let's talk about Greg Little. What was your opinion of him last year? I know he didn't really play too much; he got hurt. But what's your opinion of him in the pros, as well as as a prospect coming in?
Yeah, that was one of those picks you're on draft night and you think this is a good pick. Like they find a developmental left tackle at less than high first round prices is a good thing. I believe he had a concussion that sidelined for a pretty long time.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything. They're more careful with these younger players. Again, I would expect Greg Little to compete with Okung pretty soon. And to go back to Okung and Turner, neither one of those guys is Iron Man. They're both going to give you 10 to 12, 13 games a year. If you look at their game logs, Turner doesn't give you 16 games a year. Neither does Okung. Little might see the field sooner rather than later. And I think they would, if he's healthy. I mean, again, it's hard to see with these sort of concussion issues, but I believe he'll come back full strength.
Okay. Panthers fans probably are happy to hear that. He was an investment, and we didn't really get a chance to see much of him last year. So we're curious about that. The fact that they got Okung is nice. It's obviously making sure that they have the position covered, and having Little, it's a nice guy to have. How about the guys, the incumbent players here, the starters, Taylor Moton, Matt Paradis? What kinds of players are they, in your opinion? And, of course, how they fit in with this line?
I mean, they both fit the zone scheme really well. Paradis has experience, Super Bowl championships. He's a good player. I think Moton has the most upside of any starter currently in the lineup. If you were to ask me which one of these 5 players was most likely to make a Pro Bowl at some point, Moton's got the untapped upside out of all these guys. I think there's a realistic shot he could have played left tackle if the coaches wanted him to go down that road. He was that athletic in the film that I saw. So they moved him to right tackle. You need those guys as well. I think when you're looking at Carolina, you're like, well, why are they ranked 19th? Why aren't they ranked 10th? Or why aren't they ranked first? And the reason is you need an elite player. You need like a number one, tennis person on the tennis team, or the number one starter. You need like a stud to hold down the fort. And Moton could be that guy, but we'll see if he takes the next step.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good. And looking at the former Broncos Super Bowl team in Super Bowl 50, Paradis was on that team, right? And so was Schofield.
I believe so. Yeah, they were starters together. I think Schofield was the right tackle for various injury reasons, and it was not the way Denver drew up the line with Schofield in it starting. But he's a tough player. He's from Michigan. He's 29, but it's like a youngish 29. Didn't get a lot of starting jobs early in his career. You gotta like that Michigan legacy. I don't know how much people believe in legacies, but I feel like recruiting wise, Notre Dame, Michigan, they get those guys, and they turn out Mike McGlinchey's and guys years later because they got that pipeline.
Yeah. Did he go to Michigan State, Central Michigan? Where did he go?
I have Taylor Moton as Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. Okay.
And I have Schofield as Michigan.
Okay.
Gotcha. Go Blue, Michigan.
Something about those Big Ten offensive linemen. I'm with you. Well, Iowa too as well. Kirk Ferentz. I mean, the whole conference. It seems like they produce good offensive linemen. So that's good to know. So you have the Panthers 19th. Why are they that high? I'm sure people are kind of curious because we're thinking, this is a team we're rebuilding here. Is the offensive line kind of a strong point here for the Panthers, or are they still a work in progress?
They are an underrated 19. Their cohesion score is artificially low. Like guys like Okung, when they show up with the same plays being called and he's 32 years old, it's not going to take him that long to fit in with the system. It's really a matter of getting a lineup and settling with that lineup. So just to like talk a little about my methodology, I keep cohesion as a 4-week floating window. It doesn't take these pros 2 years to learn their neighbors' habits. I give them 4 weeks. So if you make it through the first 4 weeks of the season and everybody's still in the lineup and you have a lineup, I guarantee other teams are going to be hurting already. And then you move up. So there's a score behind it. And their score is like 31, which doesn't make any sense. But a 31 could be a top 10 score by the end of the season, just based on how attrition works. So everybody's healthy right now and everybody added to it. But when you add 3 new starters, that's also like admitting we need a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mixed bag when you have that much change.
And it seems like they made some intelligent decisions here, some signings, like you said, with the cohesion part. Schofield, familiar with Paradis. You've got Miller, familiar with Bridgewater. You've got Okung, familiar with the offensive line coach. And let's talk about that offensive line coach and why Matt Rule decided to bring him on, and that's Pat Meyer. What can you tell us about this coach for people who aren't really in the know?
Yeah, so Pat Meyer is what I would consider to be a solid coach. I mean, unbeknownst to a lot of the people, the sausage making, I do grade all the offensive line coaches, and he has a good grade on him. He's been in the league 7, 10, 15 years. he doesn't have any direct association with Matt Rule, which is refreshing because a lot of times these guys come in from college and they bring their college staff or half their college staff. And it's not like that. You need a pro offensive line coach to get to give these guys some teaching. And let me also add that Rule is smart in that it's hard to develop rookies, especially on the offensive line. It's a man's job. And these guys, sometimes they're 20 years old. And you look at a guy like Mekhi Becton out of Louisville, and you could say, wow, the upside of this guy's tremendous. He's 20 years old. How many years will it take him to reach that upside? What's your window like? And I would say the Panthers built a line that can win right now, which is good. Paradis, Okung, these are right now players. These are not guys that need 16, 32 games to work it out. Even guys that we remember fondly, all-stars, all pros, they've had when you look at the film of their rookie years, it's mixed because these guys need a year to get in the strength and conditioning programs. They need to get nutrition proper. Some of these guys, it's a whole thing, and you're 21 years old and you're going against somebody who's 28 and he's a defensive tackle who's been in the league for almost 7-8 years. It's almost a matter of scope,
Yeah, and that's good to know. Which ones would you say is better? Their running offensive line structure or their pass protection?
So based on the grades I have on these guys, I have them as a run first line just slightly. I have them as like a B line, but a B plus in run blocking and a B minus in pass blocking. And that's basically coming down to the grades on the guards. I would say Miller and Schofield are both better going forward. You don't want to get into a game where interior defensive linemen are getting free goes at John Miller all day long. That's not what you want.
Right. Okay. So that's good. In fact, I'm looking at your rankings. You gave them, let's see, a B overall for their offensive line, and you said that's 19th. Is that right?
Currently, yeah. I had to do some adjustments. Guys keep getting cut, and it pumps. Sometimes you could be 22nd and you do nothing, and now you're 19th.
Right. An A minus for their running game, and B plus for pass protection and cohesion. You gave them a 3.5, which out of 5, right? And like you said, it's probably just they need some time to kind of gel and work well together. And
to be honest, both Miller and Schofield are more traditional right guards.
Okay.
So where everybody's penciling in Miller and they're going to put him there, but if we get to camp and left guard's not working out, Dennis Daly has to step in or something else. And when you don't have a lineup that's like set in stone, it's hard to crack the top 16 of the NFL offensive line rankings. I think that's just fair.
Okay. And, come December, we might be talking about a completely different lineup for the offensive line. So, injuries happen, but it's just kind of neat to see, your offensive line rankings, and you can see those at footballguys.com, and we'll put a link up here so that you can see that and access that. All right. So Matt, you are from the Philadelphia area, which also is home to Temple. So you're familiar with Matt Rule, and I know that you are, obviously familiar with who he is as a coach and such. What is your opinion about what we've seen from him so far? What can Carolina fans expect out of Matt Rule? Do you have any kind of insight that you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I can tell you firsthand that Temple is a very difficult place to win college football games at, and it wasn't a complete fire when he got there, but he took them from bowl eligible to bowl winners. I think he had an 11-win season at one point, and they were playing Notre Dame, and it was a competitive game, and they were playing way over their heads as a program, and that's always impressive. Then he goes to Baylor, which is like, Texas, but what were they, the 5th best team in Texas at the time, coming off of a huge scandal, which is losing your scholarships, depleting your entire recruiting class.
Right.
And he ends up bouncing them back, not necessarily to number 1 in Texas, but they're beating TCU, they're beating other teams, Texas Tech, they're beating all these other teams. And then you get to his pros, and I am personally a Jets fan, which is a terrible way to go through life. And there was a point last year where Matt Rule was very much in the running and it became a money situation, I believe. But, the press was like, oh, Matt Rule wasn't be able to pick his own staff or blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is they needed to buy out. Baylor gave him another extension after that deal, and Carolina had to buy Baylor out. Anyway, I think this was a tremendous hire. I think you're getting a man that's committed to winning, not easy to find, guys that are like used to being shortchanged in terms of talent and getting the most out of whatever little they give you. That's impressive in a football context. A lot of these college coaches are Nick Saban, and no offense to Nick Saban, but when you're loaded with 5-star guys everywhere and you go to the pros, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And as a Jets fan, I liked the underdog because I figured if you could win in Temple, you could win being the second best team in New York or the second liked team in New York. I mean, it's not Dallas. There's some jobs that are easier or more sought after than others. And I feel Carolina and the Jets have had an interesting relationship over the years, just in general, and as trade partners, the Revis trade, all sorts of stuff over the years.
So, Matt, before I let you go, obviously Christian McCaffrey is a huge piece of the Panthers offense. What types of offensive linemen and really offensive strategy would best enhance his ability to, of course, be successful? And also, too, is there some sort of truth to the rumor or the possibility that Joe Brady might take a look at a 6-man offensive line? Have you heard that?
I have not heard that. That would be who is the 6th man in this scenario? Is there somebody that they're clamoring for specifically? Maybe Little?
Perhaps.
So I can say that speaks to Joe Brady not valuing the tight end in his playbook. There might be a time when he'll put a 6-man on there, and it's going to be a tempo offense. It's going to be simple. It's not going to be a lot of we're in one formation with 2 tight ends, and now we're going to flex and we're going to do 12 different things before. It's going to be like get to the line, hit the snap. Everybody steps in one direction. Christian McCaffrey finds a little seam in there, and the defense isn't ready, and they haven't had time to sub in their run package. And it's going to be based more on getting mismatches than it is based on, creating this perfect X and O motion. Like Schottenheimer would do these things. Brian, 10 motions, and there's a fullback that comes in from the wide receiver spot, and it's like, just run the play, buddy. And it's hard for the linemen to hold their water through all that stuff too. So I think you're going to see a lot of McCaffrey in the slot motioning into the backfield. Then they'll fake somewhere else. I mean, it's all about getting guys into space. I wouldn't expect the Panthers linemen to be expected to hold 7-step drops at any point this season. It's going to be like, we're moving quick. RPO is maybe overstating it, but sometimes you can get those penalties where it's ineligible downfield. If it's got to be fast. You got to make the decision fast.
Right. Any quick thoughts on what you think Teddy Bridgewater is going to do in this offense this year? A lot of people, if we're talking fantasy here, have Bridgewater in the mid-20s in terms of fantasy rankings and such. Is he more of, we hear the term game manager, right? Where you don't necessarily win with your arm. And if you're not winning with your arm, you're not going to have big fantasy numbers. So can he be a quarterback that is surprising this year?
So it's, again, I can fall back on my Jets knowledge. Thank goodness. But he was really good in preseason, and he actually can run if you need him to. People are not aware of how good he can be, and not just how good he can be, but how much the team in the locker room rallies around him, which is somehow almost more important than how big is his hand size. Or from what I saw, I really like Teddy Bridgewater. I think he can definitely be a starter and definitely at budget rates. If you're getting him late in the draft, if you're taking that, I'm going to punt on quarterback strategy, which is what most people should probably do based on me being a staff member of 7 years. I don't really know about fantasy. Guys, they hired me for the offensive line, but if you hang out with all the football guys and you hang out in their draft rooms and their mock drafts and in their fantasy leagues, you'll learn pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, punting on quarterback and getting Bridgewater late. So because I could see the team buying into him.
Yeah.
And as long as he stays healthy, that offense is made for him. And they're going to put him in the mindset like he was at Louisville. They're going to have this is your buddy, John Miller. Like they were there winning like the Sugar Bowl together at the end of sophomore season. So they really are trying to make it comfortable for him, give him a veteran line. There's nobody on that line that needs to develop.
Yeah, and you seem like you're familiar with Louisville. I remember Bridgewater when he was coming out, when he was a prospect. He was one of the better, more accurate quarterbacks, and especially when under duress. I mean, he had a high completion percentage when under duress. I want to say top 5 in the nation. Something along those lines. So, yeah, I'm excited about Bridgewater. I'm excited about Joe Brady. I'm excited about this team. I know it's a really tough division, right? With Tom Brady in Tampa now, and of course you've got Atlanta and the Saints, who are always thinking Super Bowl. But I kind of like where Carolina is going, and I'm looking forward to the season. Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving us this insight and talking about a topic that is not really talked about too much. And the fact that you're an expert in that area, we appreciate. And hopefully it gave some information and some insight to our fans and our viewers. So appreciate that so much, Matt.
Yeah, well, next time we could talk, maybe we'll have some actual film to back it up. And we can really have a good discussion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And guys, you can catch Matt Bitonti on Twitter at Draft Daddy. And you can also look at his work at footballguys.com. He's got offensive line rankings for every team, and no matter for a number of different aspects of that too. And of course, including Carolina, you can look at it. So Matt, thanks for coming on, and appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks. Appreciate it.